Welcome back to Here's the Takeaway. I'm your host, Kim Bindle, and I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is a go-getter, and we have so much in common. We're both single moms to children who are on the spectrum, and she's done a lot of beautiful, what I would call labor of love to help families who are walking the road to being the best parents they can be to their children who are autistic. And so help me welcome Stephenie K Wilter. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Kim. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so grateful for the time.
Well, when we're looking for support in walking a road we've never walked before, being a parent to an autistic child, just the first finding out and understanding this is the road we're at, accepting that, and then getting the tools that we need to move forward. Tell us a little bit of your story.
Yeah. Well, it's that what you just described, that first finding out, there's so much to that. I feel like you could live a lifetime just trying to process and figure out, what does this mean to my family? What does this mean to if I have other children? And I did. What does this mean for our future? Am I supposed to grieve this? How dare I grieve this? Like he's here. What do I do now? And then it's drinking out of the fire hose of the potential options, researching what's out there. How do I do this? I'll just tell you personally, part of my journey was being very adamant that I was now going to move out of my role. And I was in television and radio at the time. I'm going to dedicate myself to healing my son. And that word healing was just paramount. We're going to cure this. He's going to be healed. I was reading every story of every parent who had done all the things, the myriad of things that are available to do. And I was just bound and determined to do it too. And so I did. I started jumping into researching whatever I could. We started therapies early on. At the time I was married, had another older son. Ended up having 4 children in my marriage. And then, I think the statistic is 80% or more of marriages that include children on the spectrum, we split. And there I was now with 4 children and one who really had some significant needs.
Wow.
And anybody who's listening to this can identify those sleepless nights and that, which direction do we go? And dear Lord, what does this mean to us? And will I ever know my son?
Wow. Yeah. I was thinking about getting ready to speak with you today. I was just thinking about when my son, Colton, who's now 15, was assessed at the Children's Hospital down in Iowa City. And I remember driving home and I was just so angry and crying out to the Lord and having this huge, just venting of just the word spectrum alone, because it seemed so out there. It is a spectrum. Yeah. There were children in that waiting room who had very different needs from what I could see that Colton had. Some maybe a little similar, but it was clear to me that yes, this ran the spectrum. And what does this look like for the future? Am I going to be able to have a child who can, be able to function independently as an adult? And you want all these questions answered in that moment of him just being only 4 years old. And I just think how far we've come with early intervention, but also knowing that he's going to be a sophomore and he'll be graduating in 2 years and having to jump into the world. He doesn't stop being autistic, but the resources are limited until we come to you. What you got going on? So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So really early on, like I said, I was just so determined to facilitate whatever I could to get him to reach his full potential. And I started early intervention very early on. And that looked like people coming into our home.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly your home is not really a home. It's a therapy center and a sensory room center and a this and a that. And it becomes very difficult to actually have any semblance of normalcy. Don't we love I
Mm,
don't even know what that word means anymore, but
right.
to try to feel normal as a family. So at that point, I gathered with a couple of other families and we founded one of the first center-based programs in the state of Minnesota at the time. And this was to do the early intervention, but to give the families and the parents a little respite and to have it in a venue that would allow for, it was a great facility. In fact, we rented out the bottom of a church and it was really well done. And we had classrooms and everything. So that early intervention was really important for my son. It is, I find, for so many kids. I learned how to do it as well, became a certified behavioral therapist. Um, but you've probably found this out. But at the age of 7 years old or so, they age out of that and there's no more funding for it. And insurance
Right.
says nope. And MA says nope. And there you go. So the options start to change again, and you start thinking about, do they belong in a school setting? Does the school setting have the tools that they need to teach my child? Um, and then you explore other options. And in my case, I felt as though, because I was so familiar with early intervention, things like, and when we say that, for if you're listening and you don't know, ABA is applied behavioral analysis. There's also VBA, verbal behavior analysis or behavioral therapy. And this is all really designed to just teach a baseline of skills to your child so they can continue to learn. It's
Mm-hmm.
about teaching their brain to learn in ways that will allow them to continue to make neural pathways and connections and continue to learn. I know it
Mm-hmm.
sounds weird, but it's kind of the ball that starts the learning process rolling. Otherwise, they get locked into their little world, and you see them, doing those self-stimulatory
Right.
behaviors. And why are they lining up cars, and why are they not playing with toys the way toys are supposed to be played with? And so those kinds of things do help. But there's a gap, and school is sometimes appropriate and sometimes it's not.
Yes.
And so that program I created, I'm very proud of it. It's still up and running today, all 20 years later. But my son aged out pretty quickly. So then it was, again, speech therapy, OT, PT, trying to do biomedical interventions, trying the diet things, trying anything anybody would shove my way until he became an adult. And then again, took it into my own hands and decided, I don't know what he's supposed to do now. There's really nothing for him that I feel good about. I'm going to create it. And that's when I created the company that has now 4 locations and is getting these kids, young adults, out and about in the community every day. Kim, we're out twice a day with these kids.
Love
I call them
it.
kids, they're adults, but they're very active. Music therapy, adaptive
Yes.
phy-ed, partnerships, the whole thing, keeping them active.
It's fantastic. I think everybody's going to want to move to Minneapolis after this.
Come on
Let's
over
do
or up.
this. I think the encouragement that you're giving to parents right now, trying to make sure they are doing their best by their kiddo, I think there's a lot of guilt that all of us parents carry to, like, am I doing the best? I think your tenacity in putting together programs that fit the need for your own son so others could benefit as well is just beautiful and selfless and lovely of you to do this. Because sometimes, depending on circumstances, some families don't either are aware fast enough that their kiddo is on the spectrum, or just getting everybody on the same page to accept it and, get out of the denial world and move into it so that the benefit is to the child instead of,
Yes.
living in the world of denial. And like you said, they're a sponge when they're little and their learning curve is straight up just like any other child, and to be able to absorb all of that goodness. Now, I know that each state has different ways of helping and supporting in situations like ours. Some are better, some are worse. Like you did, you started something beautiful for Minnesota. for folks to be able to come to you in that way. How does it work for someone who has an adult child? How does that work, especially in your area, for them to get their child involved in that? Or
Yeah,
adult,
well,
sorry, I keep saying child, but I mean, their
yeah,
adult child.
sure. Well, and it applies to young children as well. It's one of the reason the reason you're asking that question, Kim, is because none of us knew that. You didn't know that, and I didn't know that when we needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So because there's a process of steps to go through. And it's one of the reasons I created this online support group, Spectrum Nation, just to give parents like those listening right now, or friends listening, a kind of a guidepost, like first this, then try this. But what happens is we had to legislate for this also. When my son was very little, we had to be down at the state capitol legislating for this type of support and help, because insurance companies were denying. So the first thing that happens, as you're processing that diagnosis early on, as early as possible, is to connect with the county and the county Department of Human Services or Social Services division or department, and ask for an assessment. And then, a nurse assessor comes out. They ask you all sorts of questions that make you want to pull your own hair out, because they feel utterly ridiculous and sometimes even offensive. They're
Yes.
talking to your child who struggles to be verbal, and they're asking, "What would you like to do? What are your hopes and dreams?" And I mean, it's such a bizarre experience to be sitting
Yes.
there hearing them ask questions that make you want to cry when they ask, because your child can't answer that. But that assessment is key, because the assessment with the county nurse or assessment office then opens the door to the possibility for allocated funding for services. And then when they assess where your child is at and what level of support they need, they can determine how much they're willing to allocate for those services. So, and it looks different from, for kids, somewhat different for kids than it does adults, although same process, same annual review process every year. Then you have to continue on with the assessments. And so a county case manager is then assigned. Once your child is assessed, you get a county case manager who then talks to you about the results, talks to you about the possibilities for those funding sources. What will that look like for you? Does it look like therapy? Does it look like PCAs, personal care attendants who come and help you do whatever you need to do? And then, from there are all the other open door options of different types of therapies and things that anybody can pursue, really, in any state.
Right. And I was, I would love to go see what you're doing in Minnesota. But what I think is fantastic, and you just mentioned it, is you do have this online support group, and you call it Spectrum Nation. And that's welcoming everyone pretty much, right?
Totally. Yeah, it's free. And I just launched it. It's very brand new, but I want parents like you and me to come together in a space and share ideas. And what can we do for the autism community in our own backyards and at large? I mean, I've been down the road of, again, having to help legislate, having to start things that didn't already exist, getting the licensures for that, qualifying as a licensed provider. And I'm raising kids.
Right.
So it's, it's just a full-time
It's unbelievable.
job. So
wow.
to say that the grace of God, though, Kim, has been in it, is on it, and is required is an understatement. But if I had somebody who had been through it like I have, my son, again, he's 27. So I've been through all the stages, the baby stages, the kid stages, the teenage, the now into adulthood. And so I understand what's required at each stage. And if I had somebody like me on the other end pulling me through, I would have slept easier at night. I would have breathed easier, and I would have gone through the process much, much smoother than making all the mistakes and dropping all the balls that I did early on, because it can be so overwhelming.
Yes. And to be a single mom doing that, raising other kids, is just phenomenal. And I'm thrilled that you have done this for so many of us, because I'm not as far down the road as you are in terms of where Colton is. Colton is 15 right now, and he is verbal, and he is mainstreamed into school. So
Yeah.
my thing, kind of jumping off that a little bit, in your experience, what, for families who do not have, who are listening to the podcast right now and who do not have children who are on the spectrum or are any connection to that, but they're community members. My thing is sometimes training those who do not have autism in their world and how they can support it, how they can encourage their own children to be open to it, and so that our kids don't feel so alienated in some ways. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a great idea. It's a phenomenal idea. I wish there were more ventures that are looking to do things like that. County Family Resource Centers is probably a good place for us to start facilitating those types of conversations. But I think it's imperative. I mean, with 1 in 31 kids being diagnosed now, that's the current statistic. Here in Minnesota, it's 1 in 28. I think it's similar in California and a couple of other states. So the diagnosis rates are not getting better. They're getting worse. And so, getting a handle on supporting this community is going to be imperative. And it's almost to the point now where you will be affected. You will have a neighbor, a grandchild, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, somebody will in your sphere will be affected.
Mm-hmm.
So the more that you know, the more you can understand, the better you will be. I think one of the misnomers, Kim, is that people with autism don't really understand, or just because they're not responding the way the way we would expect them to, they don't really get it. What people need to understand is that a huge population, 40+% of individuals diagnosed with autism have average or above average intelligence.
Yes.
So 85 IQ plus. It's just that their processing, that auditory processing and that expressive communication have been hindered. It's not an intellectual disability. It's a neurological disorder that is affecting the ability to garner speech and some types of behavioral patterns. So if people knew that, think about how differently they would treat your son.
Right.
Think about how differently they would have treated mine. I got to tell you, being out in public and just watching the way people looked at my son broke my heart.
Yes.
It broke my heart. And I wasn't always polite when I would invite them, I'll use that word, to ask me any questions if they had them.
Right.
About my son, so that they could come to understand why he's doing what he's doing, or why don't you try saying hello to him? He'd be happy to say hello back, right? But that understanding helps us not feel so alienated and helps integrate that child or teenager or young adult into their community with greater levels of confidence and ease. And by the way, the kids in my program, the young adults in my program that are out and about in the community all day, our community partners love them. The community benefits. Yeah. Yes. The community benefits from your son or daughter being in the community because they have gifts and talents. They have things to offer and give that are just sometimes bypassed or overlooked because we're not patient enough to guide them through being involved.
So great.
And sometimes that's what it takes.
Wow. I'm going to have you on my speed dial.
Yay.
This. I think some parents, especially approaching the place where I'm getting, he's getting ready to launch. I have 2 daughters that are in their 30s. And so we've already done this. But for him, knowing that, when he graduates from high school, what is that? It still feels a little, it's a little scary. So I am thrilled that you have put together this support team support line for folks to be able to just connect, communicate, share what's working for them, and how we can just support one another. It's hard enough to get through life, especially when you are trying to do the best by your child, all of your children, but in this particular case, child who is autistic. Wanted to ask you just maybe a personal question. What do you think Ben has taught you? What has God used Ben to teach you?
Oh, and this is the part where you make me cry. I get it. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. um, so he has taught me not to judge a book by its cover. He has taught me persistence. He has taught me unconditional love. You know, it's strange for us parents who don't hear our kids express emotion to us. And your Colton may be a little bit different, but you know, in teaching Ben language over the years, he's pretty good. You know, gets his needs met. It's broken, not exactly the way you know you and I would communicate, but he is absolutely understandable. And I had never thought I would hear him say, "I love you." And one day, a year ago, isn't that funny that I remember exactly where we were and what we were doing? We were driving in the car. We had been running errands. We were driving back about a mile from our house, getting ready to turn. And he was looking out the window. I was driving, and he just out of the blue said, "I love you." And I thought my heart was going to break. So he taught me that he hears and understands what's going on. He understands what's going on. They always do, even though we don't know that they do. They do. They're hearing, they're absorbing all the way through their stages of life, and they have so much to offer. Um, he has taught me how to be flexible. Believe it or not, very ironically, one of the, I don't know, sort of the primary behavioral issues is that rigidity,
Mm-hmm.
needing to stick to the schedule, needing to stick to the calendar, needing to and when things have come up, I have found that I get more anxious and upset thinking he's going to be anxious and upset than he does. So
Right.
he has taught me that even though there's autism at play here, they can continue to learn. They can be flexible. They can learn flexibility over the course of time, which is going to open up their options. So he's taught me, and he also taught me how to run a business. If it weren't for him,
Mm.
I would never have gone down this road. I'd still be doing radio. I'd be talking to you about something different. We'd be
Yes.
fundraising together, doing something different on the air. But here I am running multiple businesses, something I never thought I'd do. He's the inspiration for that.
Mm.
And his life is now benefiting, you know, potentially hundreds of others of kids in this area, but because he is who he is. That's
Wow.
pretty amazing.
I love it. Because it's as fast paced as your life is, just to take a breath and to look at that for a moment. Thank you, Ben, for being such a
Yes.
great kid to your mama. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I know that there are folks who are just like, where is this support group and where can I get in on it? What is the steps to take to be able to be
Yeah.
a part of that?
It's a click. It's one click. It's spectrumnation.org. Spectrumnation.org. That's it. It'll take you to a school group. There's no charge to be in the group. It's free. So we've got community calendar events. There's dialogue happening. I'm posting in there regularly. Again, it's brand new, so we're just launching now. And I'm excited. I'm excited to continue to grow this because I want to help parents advocate. I want to help them find the steps to take. Actually, I have a course in there as well, in the classroom portion that takes you through that point A through Z, like we discussed.
Yes.
What's the first thing I do? The first call I make, the first appointment I set up, etc. That's in there as well. And I'm available right now. It's my heartbeat. I feel led in this particular season to really, continue to help support young adults with autism. But parents, I've got a burden for parents now. I think because that's established and my teams are doing great, I can sort of reallocate some of my time and focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just got a heart because I know there are parents that want to start their own business or feel like they're kind of living out their own God call. They don't know how to do it because they're trapped in this bubble that looks like caretaker, care provider.
Mm.
You put that label on and you forget you're here for more than that. That's huge and important. And you've been chosen by God because there's something about you in you that allows you the grace to do this. And what else? What else can we tap into that you have that you can share with the world that we all need? We
Oh, I
can't forget
love
about
that.
that.
It's such a proactive point of view because there are days when you just want to put your hands up in the air and say, do I have any more to give? And I just love how you're rallying the troops today to say you do, and there's help and there's support. And I am so grateful for your time today. Thank you for spending time with us today to encourage us. And again, it's spectrumnation.org, right?
Yes, you got it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Stephenie. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Kim. Bless you.